Senescence is a fancy medical word that means getting older. So your cells get older, your immune system gets older, your mitochondria get older, your gut gets older as you age. But there are technologies now, there is science that shows us literally how to age backwards. And I'm telling you something, that's what I'm working on.
Mark Hyman, a globally recognized pioneer in functional medicine who spent decades unlocking the secrets to living a longer, healthier life. Today, we'll explore his most powerful, science-backed strategies for longevity, from eating the right foods to supercharging your metabolism and reducing stress. At first, let's see how lifestyle affects our body.
The biggest, obviously, is our diet change. We went from eating whole, unprocessed foods to eating highly refined foods full of sugar and starch, which, by the way, is the biggest driver of heart disease. We started eating processed fats and refined oils. We started having processed foods with huge amounts of salt in it. It's not the salt that you add at your dinner table that's the problem when you're cooking. It's the salt that's added by corporations to make cardboard taste edible. It's our increasingly sedentary lifestyles and lack of movement. I still have one of those hand beater things, to beat my eggs. We got rid of all that stuff. And my grandmother had this coffee grinder where you had to grind the coffee by hand like this. I still have it, it's an antique, but we got rid of all that stuff. We don't do much with our bodies anymore. The levels of stress have just skyrocketed. Our disconnection from each other, isolation. Loneliness and social disconnection is a bigger risk factor for death than anything else. And it causes heart disease. It causes cancer. It causes so many of the things we see. So our disintegrated society, the lack of tribal and family units being together and supporting each other through life. So many people don't even have a friend to call when things are stressful that they can be fully honest with. And that creates an erosion of our biology. And our environmental toxic load is another huge factor. We know that pollution increases the risk of heart disease, just air pollution. COVID-19 has helped with that because nobody's driving and greenhouse gas emissions have gone down 10%. But we're seeing things like heavy metals and pesticides. And pesticides also lead to obesity and diabetes. We call these obesogens. They also lead to heart disease. So this environmental load of toxins also contributes. So we have all these different factors, whether they're lifestyle or environmental or social, that have all come together to create the perfect storm for creating heart disease, for creating inflammation. And in susceptible people, inflammation will cause heart disease. And if your genetics are slightly different, they might cause cancer. And if your genetics are slightly different than that, they might cause Alzheimer's or diabetes. But it's all the same stuff, causing all the same conditions that we call age-related disease. We call them comorbidities, which drives me crazy because if someone comes in with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and kidney disease, they're not co-anything. They're all one problem caused by the same things that we're treating all separately with separate medications that doesn't address how they're all connected. So the idea of comorbidities is just nonsense in my mind. It's a term that doctors use to talk about people with multiple chronic illnesses, but we should really be talking about this unified approach to addressing root causes and restoring health, regenerating health, optimizing function. And that's what functional medicine is.
We've seen how living a healthy lifestyle can completely change the way you feel and look. But did you know some foods can actually trigger stress in your body, making it harder to stay calm and healthy?
Not eating foods that make you stressed. People don't understand that when you eat starch and sugar, it literally stimulates adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormone. So even if you're not mentally stressed, your body doesn't know the difference if you're eating food that makes you physiologically stressed. So in addition to the rhythmic living and the moderate exercise and things like meditation and yoga that can help balance the stress response, there's often nutrients that are really important to help support adrenal function and stress response. The B vitamins, like vitamin B5, for example, and also herbs like ginseng and Siberian ginseng and rhodiola and all these wonderful herbs that you can take to help support your adrenal response and make you more stress resilient. That's what the astronauts use when they go in outer space to help them stay more stress resilient. So getting your stress response in balance is a really key part of healthy aging as we get older, particularly for women as they go through menopause. We know that when your cortisol level is high, your stress hormone, that it literally shrinks your brain. They've seen tumors in animals that produce cortisol causing shrinkage of the memory center in the brain called the hippocampus. That's what shrinks in dementia. And when they take out the tumor, which lowers the cortisol, the brain grows back. So stress is a dementiagen. Toxins are dementogens, environmental toxins, heavy metals, mercury, lead. Mercury is one of the most undiagnosed health risks that we have today in America that is almost never tested and almost never treated because we never learn about it in medical school. So if we didn't learn about it, it doesn't exist. And I personally had mercury toxicity, which caused my brain to not work very well and made me feel like I was demented. And that's how I learned so much about it. But it's all the environmental toxins, but lead and mercury are among the worst. And it's also lack of relationships. That's a dementogen. If you don't have social connections, social interactions, that affects your brain and makes it decline. Lack of meaning and purpose also. These are biologically active factors. They're not just emotional or psychological. They literally have biological impact on the structure and the function of your brain and every other part of your body. Certain foods can be dementogens that are allergens, like gluten can be a dementogen. Dairy can be a dementogen, depending on your personal reactivity. Your gut microbiome, if it's not healthy in there and you've got bad bugs growing, which a lot of people do, and you have a leaky gut, that's a dementogen because that inflammation goes throughout your body and causes dementia or loss of brain function.
However, now let's take a look on something we all waited for, the big secret to healthy aging.
The big secret to healthy aging is cutting out sugar. I mean, I thought it would be some other mechanism, but it's the same thing that this cancer doctor said. The same thing that my friend who's a cardiologist said 30 years ago. He said, if you could take a group of 100-year-old people with absolutely perfectly clean arteries, who had no heart disease, what's the one thing that they would have in common? They would all be insulin sensitive, meaning they were really good at regulating their blood sugar and insulin. They didn't eat a lot of starch and sugar, their insulin didn't spike, it didn't create all these downstream effects that accelerate aging. So when you look at diabetes, it's the worst manifestation of insulin resistance. But we're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. 2/3 of heart disease is caused by prediabetes or diabetes. Many of our modern cancers that are the pandemic cancers are caused by insulin resistance. So it's the same mechanism, whether it's diabetes. And so when I see the causes of death in the world being heart disease, cancer, and dementia as the top leading causes, I'm like, yeah, they're all the same. It's not like a bunch of separate things. Even though diabetes might not be super high on the list, diabetes is a factor that causes all these things. They're pre-diabetes. And you don't have to have diabetes to cause a problem, right? Pre-diabetes can cause heart attacks, can cause cancer, and can cause dementia.
From eating nutrient-packed foods and embracing fasting to prioritizing sleep, building muscle, and reducing stress, these steps aren't just about looking younger, they're about living a longer, healthier, and more vibrant life. The best part? These changes don't require expensive treatments or fancy gadgets. It's about simple, science-backed habits that you can start today. So why wait? Take the first step now, and you'll start feeling the difference in just a few days. If you enjoyed this video, check out another one. Dr. Andrew Huberman reveals the ultimate secrets to young-looking skin.